In this video, we're going to be discussing the law and grace and how your portfolio can win when applying the concept of grace in life. So, as you can see here briefly, our portfolio is up for the day, even though the market's down. We're up 0.7%, while the market is down 0.1, 0.145, and 0.72 above, as you can see. So we're outperforming the market because we live in the truth. The funds that we invest in allow us to be financially free. So I'm going to start off by saying, do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Don't go by the patterns of regular stocks, the media, people, employers, or professors. Learn the truth of passive income. Don't you want to learn the truth of passive income? Look at how we're up on a down market day. Plus, I need to show you that with passive income, just to make you respect what we're doing here, we're making about $96,000 a year paid in monthly dividends. How are we doing this? Through principle, through grace of allowing these dividends to collect, and I'll prove it to you in these notes that I sent myself an email on. Okay, it took me a long time to compile all these notes, and I hope it's in a form that you can understand here. Okay, and I hope you can see this clearly. Without further ado, go by dividends and passive income. Also, let me just preface for you that the kingdom is inside you. It says in Luke, neither they say, see here or see there, for indeed the kingdom of God is within you. The book of Thomas says the same thing. Kingdom of heaven is within and without. Matthew, seek the kingdom, and all things shall be added on to you. John, God is principle, truth, and spirit. And Ephesians, the devil wages war with not flesh and blood, but with principality. These are all elements of the mind. And we need to use our mind and our higher principles to get ahead in life and be financially free. So how to apply grace in order to be financially free? Again, grace is the dominant Bible theme, so I'm exploring this. The law theme that you keep seeing throughout the Bible is code for God's love. And since God gives you what you want and need to show his love, then understanding how all things emanate from the heart and mind first, law and grace first, or being merely conscious of this fact in order to be able to witness the law and grace underway, is paramount to getting more out of life and being financially free. I'm only posturing this concept. I also added as understanding scripture is always a work in progress. I'm just postulating this to you. As we grow, our interpretations change. These are just the facts as I see them, so please feel free to comment below where you think I'm misinterpreting these texts or add things in that you think could be of value. Thank you again. So let's get started. Romans 10:4. Christ is the culmination of the law, so that there may be righteousness for everyone who believes. Remember, righteousness. That's a key puzzle piece. John 3:4. Everyone who sins breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness. So if sin is lawlessness, then what is the law? Let's find out. This is from Paul in Romans. I summarized Romans for you. Here's the story of how sin and the law arose in Romans. For although they knew God, they neither glorified him as God nor gave thanks to him. But their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened. So they knew God, but never glorified him as God. What does that mean? Therefore, God gave them over in the sinful desires of their hearts, gave us over to sin. Remember, this is a key puzzle piece. He gave us over to sin. It says the people, they exchanged the truth about God for a lie and worshipped and served created things rather than the Creator. So things that come from God and the mind and not outside. That's what you need to be focusing on, how things came from God and the mind and not how they just came about on the outside, I assume. Furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind. Remember, God gave them over to a depraved mind, just like he gave us over to sin. That's a key puzzle piece. So lack of knowledge gave us over to a depraved mind. So sin equals depraved mind. Okay, it says deprived, but depraved mind. In our last video on repentance, we discussed changing our minds and renewing them in knowledge. See that link in the description below. So here is a clue about what the law specifically is. Indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature things required by the law, they are a law for themselves, though they do not have the law. So, what does that mean? Let's keep reading. They show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts, their consciences, and also bearing witness, and their thoughts, sometimes accusing them, and at other times even defending them. So as we said above, everything emanates from the heart and mind, and it says here the law comes from the heart and mind. It's actually written on it, especially for people who aren't even aware of it, like the Gentiles. They still get the process of inner conversations, and things still come to them from these inner conversations, whether they know it or not. A person is not a Jew who is one only outwardly, nor is circumcision merely outward and physical. No, a person is a Jew who is one inwardly, and circumcision is circumcision of the heart by the Spirit, not by the written code. Such a person's praise is not from other people, but from God. So this is proof that actual circumcision is just a parable, and we must get our minds right in order to understand this concept on law and grace. We must get our minds right, or circumcise our hearts and minds, in order to understand this concept on law and grace. Their throats are open graves, their tongues practice deceit, the poison of vipers is on their lips. I thought that was a startling line, and it was harsh, and I wrote it for imagery. I included it in for imagery, but it's merely saying that you're having poisonous thoughts or debilitating thoughts, I believe. Now we know that whatever the law says, it says to be those who are under the law, so that every mouth may be silenced, and the whole world will be accountable to God. So every mouth may be silenced. That's code for every thought can be silenced. We don't have to have these toxic inner conversations on works. We can go another route, faith and grace instead of works. No conversations about works, inner conversations back and forth about works and how to accomplish something, how to get something. You just need to have faith and grace, which I'm about to explain. Therefore, no one will be declared righteous in God's sight by the works of the law. Rather, through the law, we become conscious of our sin, which is what I alluded to above. Just merely being conscious of the law and grace underway is a way to get more out of life, and seeing how things are coming to you in this life. And you need to be conscious and aware of our sin. And our sin is when we get off the path. Sin is lawlessness. Sin is missing the mark. So when we sin, we have a debased mind, and we need to be conscious of sin from the law. From the law, sin came. And we need to be conscious of our sin and the law and work through grace and faith instead of works and the law. I'll explain. What? Because of what law? The law that requires works? No, because the law that requires faith. For we maintain that a person is justified by faith apart from the works of the law. In fact, Abraham was justified by works, but he had something to boast about, but not before God. So you can pull things off, for example, in the stock market with dividends, or you can pull off wealth in the stock market through stocks. But those works aren't guaranteed, and the dividends are what is guaranteed, and that's what dividends require. Faith. You cannot put faith in stocks. They go up and down. They may never come back, but the ETFs of the indexes like the S&P and NASDAQ will always come back. You can always have faith in that, because the truth is that they average 7% a year. And so you only need faith to operate under that investment strategy, and not works of the law. Again, if you think this is a futile subject, you can work your butt off in a job or in the market trading your way to the top, but statistically that leads to unfulfillment and does not work over time. Dividends and passive income does work over time, and that's what you can put faith in and allow to work under grace instead of by works and confusing inner conversations to get you there. In fact, Abraham was justified by works. He had something to boast about, but not before God. Now, to the one who works, wages are not credited as a gift, but as an obligation. So if you work in day trading, of course, and you win, you're going to be credited with an obligation. However, to the one who does not work, but trusts God who justifies the ungodly, their faith is credited as righteousness. There's that word righteousness again. how we need to be right, and in order to find righteousness, we need to work under faith and grace, not the law. And dividends allow you to work under faith and grace, not the law. That's righteous dividends, passive income. To expound on that point a little further, dividends. So I work as an investor, but more like a farmer who sows in the field. The work is done. Now I'm just waiting for the harvest and dividends through the faith and the truth. That the divs on these 4-star funds are more reliable than inconsistent gains from stocks. I have faith in that. And these 4-star funds that we invest in, like the SPY, this is a 4-star fund. Okay, we link our investments to this. This made $40,000 in 10 years. However, we are in CLM because it not only mirrors the S&P and is a 4-star fund, but it made $50,000 in 10 years. So that's the truth. We think that is the truth, and we put our faith in that 4-star fund from Cornerstone. So that's one example of how we use higher ratings for the Morningstar, the truth, to put our faith in a fund that's linked to the indexes, the S&P, which is also the truth over a stock. And because of that, we can put all of our money behind it and make more money in the process, because it takes money to make money. But you can't put all your money behind something and be able to sleep at night. Put all your money in Bitcoin, see what happens. You'll be losing sleep. But if you put all your money in dividend names that pay you dividends 8 to 10K per month, and you know that they're coming, then you can easily sleep at night on that. And you know that the process is working, and you're just really relying on faith and grace for these dividends to collect. So if I win with stocks, it's like pure works that Abraham did. Yes, this can be boasted about, but all you need is grace to win and be prosperous with dividends. That's the way I'm interpreting this. Blessed are those whose transgressions are forgiven, whose sins are covered. Now, when I make mistakes in trading, which are rare since I keep those moves small, the dividends always cover my mistakes. Okay? And as long as I have the control to change and improve my situation, being conscious and aware of this principle of the law underway, then hopefully, as the facts or truth change on the ground, I can react accordingly with it and go where the wind blows me. An example of that would be AMSA. We had a fund years ago that we had all of our money in oil and gas, but when oil and gas prices plummeted because of our competition with the Saudis, I had to quickly move with the changing sand under my feet. I had to quickly go where the wind was blowing me. I had to go out of AMSA. I had a couple 100,000 in AMSA, and I had to reduce it to only 7,000 and move my 100,000 into the Cornerstone indexes because they were tied to the indexes and they were the truth. The ultimate truth. I thought AMSA was the truth at first, but as you grow and evolve, you realize that the indexes and the S&P are the truth. So dividends make up for all my mistakes. My sins are covered under dividends. Under what circumstances was it righteous or credited? Was it after he was circumcised or before? It was not after, but before. So we all have this right in us before we even know of it. The law is always working for us, whether we know it or not. But the law leads to death and leads to sin. And it was not sustainable for the long run. I couldn't buy houses on stock money. The banks need dividends and pay stubs as qualifying income, so I could not rely on stocks. It just led to sin of me getting off my path as I would buy this stock and forget what my mission was and buy this stock and buy that stock thing. And Apple was the way, Nike was the way. I kept getting off my path of who I was becoming. And it was, even if I made money in it, it wasn't qualifying to a bank or allowing me to live my life like dividends could. So all it did was lead to death, sin and death, the works of the law under stocks. But when I switched to dividends and found a renewal of my mind and switched to dividends, I operate under faith and grace instead. And it made life in the stock market much easier. So, and this has all been given to us before we even know about the law underway. But now that you know it, you can be conscious of it. It was not through the law that Abraham and his offspring received the promise that he would be heir of the world, but through the righteousness that comes by faith. So he wouldn't get to be the heir of the world without faith, not through works, but with faith. And I have a pause here saying world refers to your mind or land in the parable of the owner of the seed. The promise that you can always start anew on good land when you are reborn again. More on that after Romans and on the next video. Therefore, the promise comes by faith, that it may be by grace and may be guaranteed to all Abraham's offspring, not only to those who are of the law, but also to those who have faith of Abraham. He is the father of us all. So whether you do it through the law or grace and faith, it's going to work both ways. You're going to get what you are owed in this life. But through faith and grace, it works better. That's what it's trying to say here, isn't it? It says here, not only so, but we also glory in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance. So as you're suffering, waiting for your harvest to come, that builds perseverance. It produces perseverance and it builds character, and with character, hope. We also made a video on character and building and the attitude of gratitude, how building character builds your ability to get through tougher times and bring you fortunes in down markets. Because if you look at a down market like it's fearful and bad, you hate it. But if you look at it like it's an opportunity and you have an attitude of gratitude for this circumstance, then you can actually build your fortune. You have to buy low and sell high, don't you? But also it brings the character needed to become special in the market as you grow and problems grow with scale. As we make more money with our account being bigger, we have to be able to take bigger swings in our account and deal with blows to our ego, and building that character from waiting for the promise to be fulfilled built that character. And the promise was land, blessings, and offsprings. And I believe I received new land and a new place in my mind with passive income than with stocks. That was a barren land, stocks. Passive income provides a whole new land, a whole new set of blessings for myself and all the offspring that come from that, all the ideas that come from that. So the law was brought in so that trespass might increase, but where sin increased, grace increased all the more. What shall we say then? Shall we go on sinning so that grace may increase? Well, should I go on with the ways of investing in plain stocks or using margin for speculation, which was wrong because it was not the truth, versus passive income? Should I go on with all the ways that were not providing any benefit to me? By no means. We are those who have died to sin. How can we live to it any longer? How can I go back to stocks from passive income? How can I go back to being a man from being a father? How can I go back into the matrix once you left the matrix? How can old wine go into the new wine pouch? How can a new wine go into the old wine pouch? They're just impossible. And that's why those are Bible themes that you see redundantly throughout the Bible: old wine and the new wine pouch. Once you know the truth, you cannot go back. For sin shall no longer be your master, because you are not under the law anymore, but under grace. You're not having mixed up conversations trying to provide your means by works. Now you're just working under grace. But thanks be to God that you used to be slaves to sin. You have come to obey from your heart the pattern of teaching that has now claimed your allegiance. Yes, I'm following these patterns in the Bible. They are redundant throughout, but also there are patterns to making money and passive income. I list a few here. You can read them. A pattern of world of equity, like 1 times 4. For every dollar you get 4, but for every 1,000 you put in, each stock is 0.25 maintenance. So you get 1/4 of your equity taken and 3/4 left, so you can invest elsewhere for higher returns. Dividends come in established patterns. They come monthly. The charts rely on patterns for the best entry points in the stock market. So patterns, you have to follow patterns. And Jesus is the pattern man, as it says once in the Bible. I follow the patterns of the Bible, but I'm following the patterns of success here. And if you want more on maintenance and equity and how these numbers follow these patterns, see my video. I'll link it in the description below. The secrets on how to use leverage, and it has a thumbnail with a gear turning and a wrench. So check that out on how you want to see the patterns and the secrets of equity work. Anyway, you've been set free from sin and have become slaves to righteousness, which is grace and faith. Yeah, I'm like a slave to success and dividends. That's right. I'm not a slave to stocks anymore and the ups and downs. I'm a slave to the success and the dividends. After all, what benefit did you reap at the time from the things that you are now ashamed of? Those things resulted in death. Stocks resulted in death. Wasteful spending in my life, Netflix binges, party binges. What did you really reap? Nothing lasted. It all got you off your track, which was sin, and then it all eventually died because you don't want to continue in those ways, and they're not the truth, and they don't provide happiness and abundance. So, do you not know, brothers and sisters, for I'm speaking to those who know the law now, that the law has authority over someone only as long as that person lives. So, we died to the law through the body of Christ, that you might belong to another, to him that was raised from the dead. So you must be reborn again to enter the kingdom. John says it, but you must belong to another, your higher self, and you must die to stocks and works in order to walk the passive income path with grace. That's how I interpreted it. So then the law is holy and the commandment is holy, righteous, and good. What was the law for? It said earlier, I left this part out, but I summarized. What's the law for? The law teaches that the law teaches that its process is good, because when sin occurs, we need to hate it enough in order to recognize it and change it. We need the pain of sin to be significant for us to make the change and never want to go back. The truth hurts, but it also sets you free. Stock pain and working 9 to 5 was significant enough for me to never go back. For in my inner being I delight in God's law, but I see another law at work in me, waging war against the law of my mind and making me prisoner of the law of sin at work within me and my members. Again, in my inner being I delight in God's law. If you read the whole Romans, it would say that he does good and bad comes, and he knows that when he wants things good or bad, they come even if he doesn't want them that way, because the law is always underway. And so he delights in God's law because God's law provides things. So you delight in that. But you need to understand that law brings sin as well and gets you off your path and can provide things that lead to death. Whereas if you go with faith and grace, they lead to everlasting life. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. My mind is governed by principle, truth, and spirit now, which is passive income, cornerstone, and my family at the moment. More peace has come as a result from dividends in this process, guys, and it even worked during the infamous bear market of 2022. As you can see, my performance speaks for itself. You saw my performance. So we know that we have to go by faith and not works, but James said in 2:26, faith without works is dead. So I think it requires both. It requires a little bit of works, but mostly it requires faith. And I believe that I have worked to make this portfolio set where we used works to get to set up our portfolio for success. But now that we have used the works and we have planted the seeds and tilled our fields, now we're just waiting for the harvest every month, which is our monthly dividends, which I already showed you. So we're up 1,000 for the day, 776. We're outperforming. We're up 0.13 when the market's down 1%. This is because passive income is the truth, and these 4-star funds keep bids underneath them because people understand that in a dicey market, it's nice to have stability of income coming in. So that's why these funds are 4-star, not only because of their dividend history and how reliable their dividend payments are, but because they provide security in a world of unsurety. So people want that when the future is uncertain in the stock market. They want the dividends. And that's what I believe in as well. I believe that the dividends are coming to me, and all I have to do is rely on faith and grace in order to receive them. So I believe that my passive income fundamentals and results prove that my $500,000 portfolio, $500,000 when you include leverage and losses, is not under law anymore, so much as it is under grace, and that that makes it justified in its goals of allowing one to be financially free through collecting dividends in the mail. I'll just end with this, Joshua 1:8. Keep this book of the law always on your lips. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. So, I hope you got something out of this video. Rely on faith and grace to receive what you want in life, whether it be dividends or anything else in life that you want and need, and understand that it all comes from God, which is in your heart and minds, and we need to renew our minds and knowledge daily. In order to understand this, we need to circumcise our hearts and minds in order to understand this principle of faith and grace, and switching to passive income for financial freedom.